Hello and welcome back to my channel, and today I want to tell you about a pattern that I found recently and made up into a dress. I think sometimes 1940s 50s patterns can tend to be a bit samey when you're flicking through on Etsy looking for something, and a lot of them do tend to look the same. So this pattern has got an unusual detail, which is the skirt part, and once I find an unusual pattern I do tend to buy them because I don't want everything the same in my wardrobe. I like to have something that's got a bit of a different detail to it. Now, as I said, this pattern was from Brooklyn Girl Vintage. It cost £9.69, so that's quite reasonable. It's a PDF pattern. Here's the picture. So you can see there it's got a rather unusual skirt detail at the back. And also I love this neckline here. I think they're really flattering, this style of neckline. And I can use that on a different garment that I make in future. So it's got a short and a long sleeve version. You do need a lot of paper if you buy this and download it as a PDF, because the skirt pattern is huge. It'll take up all of your floor space when you're sticking it together. So here is the skirt pattern. So this was after I cut the skirt pattern piece out. It's basically one piece that is the front and the back. So you've got two pieces. That's the centre front line, and then the back extends almost like a fishtail in a curve around, and it's actually quite a long back seam, and then it comes around the bottom like that with a curve like so. So the centre back of the skirt pattern has these rows of 3 dots and some arrows, and this is where the gathers are going to be. So I used some dressmaker's carbon paper and just a pen to mark out the dots onto the fabric so I could see where I'm going to sew them. So this is a closer look at the pattern piece, and it's the right way up. So you can see where the pleats meet and the direction of the arrows. So they're going upwards. So they're the small pleats, small dots, sorry, to meet the large dots. And this is where I've put them onto the fabric. Not sure if I've done it quite right, but it did seem to work once I'd sewed it. Once I'd sewn the pleats into the back of the skirt, this was what I ended up with. So as you can see here, this is the centre front seam, and then zooming in, these are the pleats at the back. There's still a little bit of red carbon, but that will come out in the wash. So you can see I've put the pleats to meet the dots, and it's formed these 3 pleats at the back of the skirt. Once I'd sewn the pleats in and given it a good press, which made it look 100% better, you can see the pleats here pinned on the mannequin, and how the fabric is draping from those pleats. So they run round from the back to about the hip, and it gives it a lovely drape and a kind of waterfall effect, which really suits this fabric and makes it almost look a kind of a bias cut at the back. This is the finished dress in its entirety, and as you can see with the skirt at the back, there's a lot of fabric in it and a lot of movement. So it comes out here like this, so you can see just how much drape there is in it, and it gives this lovely bias effect. I used a really nice soft crepe from Ditto Fabrics, and I think it really suits the pattern. So what I did, I'll show you here, on the actual pattern there is a zipper that goes all the way down the back. Now I only had a zipper that came up to here, so because I had these buttons in my stash and they went perfectly, I just did a halfway zipper, and this really worked, and it also added a little bit of extra detail. So if you're ever in a position where you haven't got a long enough zip, this is a little hack you can use. I just made some little loops out of the fabric. So that's something you can do if you can't get hold of a long enough zip, and it just adds another little bit of extra detail. The one other thing I did was make some shoulder pads, so it would give it a more 1940s feel. These just go inside like so, and I have actually got a pattern for some shoulder pads that I used, but yeah, that just gives it a little bit of extra. Here's the front version of the dress. I did make a belt for it as well with a little vintage buckle just to pull that up to the waistline so it sits right. And here's that lovely neckline. I really like this shape. I find it really flattering. And just some little short sleeves there. And I did actually wear the dress. I wore it Rhythm Riot when we went to Camber Sands for Rhythm Riot a few weeks ago. So here's a little montage of the day when I wore it. Finally, as I mentioned before, I do like to get the most out of a pattern to get good value for money. So I decided to use the same pattern to draft this blouse that I'm wearing. And what happened was I was rooting through my button stash and I found these vintage buttons that I picked up in a charity shop on holiday somewhere. And then I found that I'd got some perfectly matching fabric. So I decided to use the same pattern to draft this blouse. As you can see here, you'll just be able to see it, it's got a centre front seam. So basically what I did was took the centre front seam and extended it to make a placket, and then drafted a facing to go down each side. The neckline isn't quite as high, but I can live with that. I'm quite happy with it. So there you go, new blouse, one pattern, 2 garments. So I'm going to pop a link down below for Brooklyn Girl Vintage Patterns, and I'll also pop a link in for the fabric shop, which is Ditto Fabrics, where I got the Harlequin fabric from. So there you go, that's this most recent sewing update. If you'd like to see more, because there will be more coming, please subscribe and I'll see you next time.